So, firstly, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the EOSC-Pillar final conference. After 3 years, we made it. But before we begin, of course, we'll start with some housekeeping reminders, because it is not just an on-site event, but this is actually a hybrid conference. And in fact, we have quite a few people that are registered online. Essentially, half of the viewership of this conference is online and half on-site. So some reminders. This is a hybrid conference, so of course, we engage our on-site participants, but we'll try as much as possible to engage the remote audiences as well. So for the remote attendees, you have, just for information, so this is in Zoom, and you have control over which screen you would like to see more of by pinning it. So you can pin that in Zoom if you right-click, and you can, on the screen that you would like to highlight. Just for your information, the main screen of interest would be generally the main BNF screen. So that one you'll be able to see the stage, the speaker, or the presentations, depending on what's the focus of the session at the moment. For the audience Q&As, we will ask you to please input your question in the Q&A function. Reminder, this is for the remote audiences. This is for the Q&A function in Zoom. We will also do, of course, a Q&A with those of you who are present with us, so don't worry, we'll see you if you raise your hand. Just be ready, so for both remote audiences and on-site audiences, just be ready to be given the floor to speak. Basically, for those with us on-site, my colleague will approach you with the microphone, and that's why we also encourage you to come a bit closer. Finally, for the remote speakers or audience members speaking during the Q&A, or at any point really, and this is for remote, only one person can have the microphone activated at a time. So in case anyone in remote would like to intervene or say something, please raise your hand, and that gives me the notification to give you the floor. Also, just during the breaks, for those of you connecting with us live remotely, we'll play some of our videos on the foyer on Zoom, so just bear with us if we don't start exactly on the dot, just because we're gathering people into the room. So with that, I'd now like to pass the floor to the EOSC-Pillar project manager, Fulvio Galeazzi, who is co-chairing this session with me. Front, please, welcome.
Thanks a lot, Rob. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here in this wonderful place. We finally managed to meet in person, which is already quite a success. Those of you who are not in the project, maybe they don't know that we also we strove to change reality, and we organized a series of meetings which we love to call face-to-face, even though they were never really face-to-face, because the first one was supposed to happen on the exact day when everything started. So now, as I said, it's a pleasure to see you here as real persons, not just images or thumbnails on a screen, and shake hands. I'm representing here the coordinator, Federico Ruggeri, my director, who unfortunately could not be with us today because he had other commitments. But we have a video. He left a video for us. We will see later. So we're here for our final event of the project. The final event is the time to look back at what we did. It was a long journey, already a bit more than 3 years. And we achieved quite a lot, as we will see. So I'm very satisfied for that. And thank you. And actually, we loved so much working together that we also asked for an extension and because we were so keen on seeing the EOS materialize, and all this enthusiasm and effective way of collaborating led us to ask for an extension, which will drive the project through the end of December this year. I said it's time to look back, so I want to take this opportunity to remember one person who was strongly pushing for the project, and Laura Perini, who passed away this summer. And she was the chair of the General Assembly. She was also an active member of the WB2 and WB4 work packages in EOSC-Pillar, in addition to all her other commitments in the field of high energy physics, which was her more traditional work. Apart from the EOSC-Pillar, I think most of you may know her since at least in the last 2 decades at least. She was deeply involved in in a lot of activities dealing with infrastructures, grid computing at the time, then cloud computing and open science. Her enthusiasm, her ability to listen and to propose her views in a quiet and respectful way, I personally miss much. As I said, so we have to look back, but also to look forward, so we can be lucky to have shared a piece of our journey with Laura, but then we also need to look beyond us. The final event is evaluation time, but also see what's next. And this is the theme of these 3 days we are spending together. We'll look back at what we built together with the other regional projects, and how to make all the bits that were created, how these will outlast our projects, and how this project has enriched our institutions, our national initiatives, and the EOSC ecosystem at large, and also what needs to be further developed, where we need to spend further activity in the future to make the EOSC a success. So we will try to have this double path. Okay, look back and look beyond, and we will try to provide some answers. Maybe not all of them, but at least some good indications of where we should be heading in the future. Having said this, I don't want to steal more of your time, so I will stop here, and I will call to the floor Volker, which I don't see. Okay, yes, you're here. Volker was a member of the EOSC-Pillar project in the French group. He was leading the WB7 before being called to higher levels at the Ministry for Higher Education and Research, where he is working since February 2022. He has been the co-chair of the EOS steering board, which is representing the member states and associated countries in the EOS governance. So, welcome, Volker. Thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you. How do I?
So, let me share the screen for a second. Okay, there we go. So, let's see.
So thank you very much for the invitation. Thanks for joining in this event today. We are very pleased at the French Ministry for Higher Education and Research to see this project having such a success story over the years after, one can say, not too easy start we had back in the days. So let me just summarize a bit how I see how the project came into place and what the big successes are, and then I switch a bit gear and I talk a bit about what the national commitment of the steering board is in general terms for the EOSC. So EOSC-Pillar, of course, has to be seen in context, and it starts, of course, always with the EOSC vision. And I think colleagues always say EOSC is so complex and so on. EOSC is not complex. The vision of EOSC is very simple. It's a web of fair research data and services. It's access to fair research data services and e-infrastructures for all European researchers. We don't want to create something new. We want to reuse, we want to enhance, and we want to think of the EOSC as an interface, not as a new structure we want to create somewhere. And a very important message is always it's free at the point of use. And then, of course, but the implementation, how do we make things work? And of course, this from the beginning was a bit seen as a challenge, right? We didn't start out directly to creating the EOSC. So before EOSC-Pillar, we had the EOSC-Pilot project. There are some colleagues among you here who have been in this project already. So this was a bit like the think tank for EOSC. This was a bit developing what elements do we actually need for EOSC and what recommendations would we have. We produced a lot of recommendations in this project, and I think not many have been read actually then afterwards. I see then the same things coming up again. But I think that's also part of the process, that it's a heavy machinery to put into place, so things have to be done sometimes again. So we had something like the use cases, we had science demonstrators, but at that time was perhaps a bit too early. This had not such an impact. So, but what I think from EOSC-Pilot, what I took away was this first community building. So, which is, I think, also very essential for EOSC-Pillar, this getting new colleagues to talk to each other who haven't talked before, and getting domains to talk with each other. In EOSC-Pilot, it was still a bit limited, the different domains. In EOSC-Pillar, it's much wider. Yes, and one big difference was EOSC-Pilot. There were a lot of colleagues from the UK involved, and unfortunately now, with the Brexit, of course, we have less participation of UK colleagues. So EOSC-Pillar proposal, so in 2018, there was this Infra-EOSC 05B call. So what did we want to do? Analyze the situation, what do we have already in place in the different countries, better coordinate what we have. We wanted to, in our countries, in the 5 countries, structure better how we approach EOSC. And of course, we wanted to onboard communities and services, and we wanted to be more inclusive than we had been before. And that was also very, very special here. We wanted to work country-specific. We wanted to focus on these 5 countries. Also, in the context of the 5B call, the Commission had seen, well, perhaps we need to focus on certain regions in order to advance, because otherwise, if you try with all 27 countries plus the 12 associated countries at once, it's very difficult to move ahead. And of course, one major point was also this best practices, the success stories to create, to give examples what one can do. So consortium building and proposal writing was not so easy, but I guess that's nearly always the case. And I from my point of view, you might have a different point, but for me, it was very essential, the work of Federica and Fulvio and the colleagues from Trust IT to bring us together to write one proposal together, because we were a lot of colleagues from all different kinds of domains, and not all had been working together before. So I think part of the success is definitely due to the involvement there. So then we had this project, and then the problem in principle starts. So you start a very complex project with a lot of partners, new domains, and then the first question is always, what exactly do we want to do? What do we want to achieve? What do we really want to put in practice? So the first thing which was done, and was very fast done after the start of the project, was the landscape analysis. And Lisa is here, and Anita pushed very hard also for this, and it was that was a very early result we had. And then we had all this work of setting up the work packages and planning the face-to-face meetings, and then came COVID. So that, of course, was a bit of a challenge, but it was also an opportunity. So I go now directly to the end, because all the things in between you will fill in tomorrow and later today. So I think the success stories here were that during the COVID time, EOSC-Pillar managed to get their act together to provide solutions for doing research in the context of COVID, involving different e-infrastructures, different organizations, and enabling workflows there. And this was really something new. This is something we hadn't done before. So it was also a project where real solutions were provided, so AI and onboarding services and so on. And it was really work also to promote these use cases. So a strong message is always, in EOSC, we need use cases in order to convince other colleagues to be interested in EOSC. If we don't have something to show, then we are not going to convince anybody. So because the vision is great, but the vision without examples doesn't mean much to colleagues. A lot of guidelines, solutions, and advice was developed. And specifically, I think there was a lot of structural work done in our countries, and I see a fast development throughout the 5 countries through the EOSC-Pillar project. I mean, in the different countries with the engagement, which is very visible at the European level. And it was also integrating new research communities into the EOSC ecosystem, which hadn't been there before. So it was really coordination and harmonization to support EOSC. So I want to look forward, actually. You can then spend the time also to look back what you have achieved. But what do we do now from here? So I would like you to see the EOSC and EOSC-Pillar. That's part of the digital transition we have to work on in general as societies. And how do we do this? How do we do this from the ministry level? That's through policies. So policies to develop on national and international level, and you have some examples for EU policies, Data Act, Data Services Act, and so on. And you might think, well, they don't have a lot to do with my research field. They do. It's like GDPR. In the beginning, you don't know that it has something to do with you, and then later on, you learn about that. And that's something where also the ministries and the large organizations have to help you in order to understand what is the impact there. Then we have, of course, examples for policies at national level. So, for example, since this year, the Piano Nazionale Scienza Aperta, and we have in France, we have the Plan National pour la Science Ouverte. So these pushing forward the ideas of open science, making it mandatory to share your research results, making open access mandatory, and all these things which belong to open science. And if you look across the Atlantic, you have the EOSC memorandum ensuring free, immediate, and equitable access to federally funded research. And this goes even further. It's asked for immediate access to your research results. So we are not alone in Europe with this idea that it's very important that what is publicly funded as research has to be shared and has to be open and has to also be in a form that it can be shared. So not only open, it has to be fair and it has to come along with the services necessary. And then we have now on the European level, we have the EOSC as a transverse data space, right? It provides services, support to all domains of science. And in order to accelerate the digital transition, we have now the European data spaces. It starts with the health data space, where there's a lot of potential, of course, because you have the research data, or you have the data in the different hospitals. They are very often not fair. So we have to help communities or help hospitals, help doctors to provide fair data and to make this then accessible to the research sector. That's a huge undertaking, but it's also with a huge potential for gain in knowledge. So in this context of the policies and the EOSC steering board, of course, we want to make open science the new normal, so we need investment in order to start that. It's not often a concept which is well known in public sector that one has to, before one can save something, you first have to invest. That's much more known in the private market, where it's easier to get money if we say, okay, in 5 years and 10 years, I'm going to save something, I'm going to make it more efficient. In the public sector with our fixed budget, it's very difficult to say, okay, give me some resources in order that I improve the system. So, but this is in principle what we have to do. And we have, in this context, we have a large number of stakeholders. And this is, of course, a challenge because you have to deal with the colleagues in the laboratories, with the managements, with the funding agencies, with the ministries, and with the European Commission. So you need a lot of coordination. But at the end, these national policies, they provide a frame and orientation for your research performing organizations, for you, because it gives you security. What you do is in line with what the countries want and what they are willing also to support. So ideally, these policies should also influence how funding is done. So that's, of course, always a slight question mark. Do we have all these policies? Do they really come then with some financing which enables you then to do a better job? So in the EOSC steering board, we have delegates of all Horizon Europe 27 member states and the 12 associated countries. So that's a strong vehicle if we push together on policy development. So what we do right now is in the steering board, we analyze the landscape in Europe, and we say, okay, there are gaps in the policy landscape, at least in some countries, and we have to push for going ahead there. So for 2022, we have identified 4 policy areas where we want to push. So one is EOSC and data literacy, one is EOSC and the commercial partners, the third one is EOSC sovereignty on fair data, and the fourth one is monitoring open science in the first in the EOSC context and then in general context. So we developed this opinion papers. It's like a recommendation at the European level, and so they are always structured with an introduction and with some objectives and the recommendation at the end, and the recommendations come on the EU, national, and institutional level. And these opinion papers are finalized now for presentation at the EOSC Symposium, and I hope to see you all there in Prague then, either in person or online, where we will discuss these opinion papers. And we are going to condense then these 4 opinion papers into a statement of the EOSC steering board. So you might say, why do you need a statement? If you want to pass a message to politics, to the deciders, you have to be very short. You have to have some keywords in there and have to say, okay, this exactly we want to work on. And we hope then that this statement is then also picked up, by example, by the commissioner or by the ministries which are present at the EOSC Symposium. So I said already we have this opinion paper on monitoring. What's the background for that? So our member states and associated countries support the EOSC through policy development. I talked about this, through financing of EOSC relevant infrastructures and organizations, and help with the coordination. So in short, policies and funding. That's what it comes down to in principle, what you expect from your ministries in this context. And the motivation for the monitoring is not to say, well, you are not doing good and you are doing very well. We want to measure progress. We want to see how things are improving over time and where we might still do better. So it's also the sharing of best practices, which is also an essential part of EOSC-Pillar, that we learn from each other and that we learn what can it be applied perhaps in a different country as well, because it has had a big success in another country. So we also want to have an overview of the actual investment into EOSC, and we want to demonstrate the commitment into EOSC to you as EOSC providers, because you want to know, okay, we in the EOSC Association, for example, we do all these things. What is the contribution of the ministries and of the EOSC steering board? And as I said, we want to monitor evolution, and we want to motivate ourselves to do better and more for EOSC. So this is right now nearly finished. We did the first survey, and every time you do a first survey, then you learn a lot. So it's not perfect, but we are improving. So we have now the first results. It's going to be public very soon. The EOSC Observatory is working on a dashboard where you can then see all these results, and then you can see, for example, which countries have a EOSC relevant policy, which countries have a policy on data management, which one have something about citizen science. And we have also something about the financing, so which countries have a financing connected directly or indirectly with the EOSC relevant policies. And finally, we will also have something like a lump sum. So that's right now it's about 200 million euros. This number is a bit vague because not every country applied the same methodology. So that's more an orientation number. It's not something where you can really, where you can say, okay, in 2020, 200 million euros went to the Bank of EOSC. So what are the next steps for the EOSC steering board? So we want a report about the first survey, and this is going to be published around the time of the EOSC Symposium, then with the real announcement there in November in Prague. And we want, in the next round, we want to extend this survey to all aspects of open science, like open access, citizen science, and so on. And we want to clarify the methodology on determining the national financial contributions, because we would like to have a more meaningful number there. We will not disclose probably what each country has spent, because that might not be so helpful, but at least the lump sum. We will continue to coordinate with other monitoring exercises. I didn't mention that, but of course the EOSC Association does, inside the MOU with the Commission, does a lot of monitoring what is provided by its members to the EOSC. And this is complementary to what we do, and this is again complementary what the NPR does or what is done in the ERA monitoring. And we are going to favor pulling information, because a lot of information is out there, from asking colleagues, where can you provide me with this and this information? And we are going to accompany this with the statement I talked about at the EOS symposium. So, just to summarize, so for me, EOS-Pillar is a real success story. EOS-Pillar marks a vital step for the path towards EOSC in Austria, Belgium, France, Germany, and Italy. And from its beginning, EOS-Pillar was seen as very vital by the French Ministry of Higher Education and Research for building up EOSC in France. And I think it has proven to be really this motor here in France. And the main outcomes, from my point of view, are this thorough analysis and the recommendations for the development of EOSC, the many use cases, which I hope we are going to see today and tomorrow, and the strengthening of the EOSC community, because at the end it comes down to the people we can motivate to participate in the EOSC and to help us building that. It's not so much the infrastructures and the money, it's really the individual people, and it's not the FTEs, it's really the personalities, because you can have 5 FTEs, but if they have to do this, then they might not be so useful in order to bring things forward. So our ministry congratulates the EOS-Pillar community for its contribution, dedication, investment, and achievements. Thanks.
Thanks. Yes. Thanks, Volker. Are there questions from the audience? I think we have possibly a couple of minutes.
Please raise your hand if there are any questions.
I don't see you see anything.
Okay,
from
I
remote?
don't see any on remote either. So
Okay. Okay, so we can thank Volker again, and to you.
Just load up the next. Okay, so thank you for that, Volker. I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker, who is the European Commission Open Science Policy Officer. His name is Christian Cuciniello. He is the Policy Officer for Open Science at the Directorate General for Research and Innovation of the European Commission. Mr. Cuciniello is involved in the implementation of the Horizon Europe co-programmed partnership on the European Open Science Cloud, notably developing call topics and contributing to policies on data such as fair services, repositories, identifiers, etc. So please, everyone, let us welcome Christian. Here you are. So just flip through the screen here.
Thanks a lot for having me here. Thanks for the introduction. It seems like I'm doing a lot of things, but it's not the truth. I'm happy to be here also because I was so lucky to be present at the kickoff of this project that was also the first among the 5B projects that started, and the one tasked to start also the monitoring of the landscape analysis for EOSC that was functional to the work of the EOSC steering board. So, I mean, the project since the beginning had an important role and is still among the 5B projects one of reference, and also tackling almost all the aspects of the open science policy. So what Volker said, what is EOSC? That is simple, is a web of fair data. I'd like to see that it will be a web of fair data. For the time being, is also all the steps towards this web of fair data. And for the Commission, it is now one of the main enabler for our open science policy. What I mean with enabler, open science now is the response of the Commission for the digital transition of science. So it provides the way to expand the number of research outputs towards those that are digital. It offers collaboration and openness, bringing transparency of research and also contributing to establish more trust from the side of the society to research. And then bringing research at a high level in terms of policy making, supporting policy, supporting member states in creating the new avenues towards various challenges. Basically, we would like to see the open science to become the new normal, but to do so, we need systemic change. This systemic change needs to bring knowledge and skills towards what we call a fair research data management for our researchers. We need also to change the system in the sense that it has to untie to the old logic of the research assessment, pointing to journal impact factors and let's say not valorizing the open science practices. So that's a change. And why EOSC, in which way EOSC can enable that? EOSC can provide, through its federation, all the elements that will help member states to create together a new assessment system for research. I mean, bringing the value of the open science practices into that system. And also it will provide, let's say, an easy gym for researchers to, let's say, exercise the skills on fair research data management. It links to the publications and the data, and also EOSC can do something more in federating also resources that go beyond data, that go to services but also go to publishing. As you see, I mean, EOSC providing those services can be instrumental for all the aspects of the open science policy of the Commission. So this is our logic. I mean, really to push EOSC to cover a role that is functional to many aspects of our policy. The EOSC implementation, as you know, it's done through a co-program partnership. What it means for the Commission, the co-program partnership, apart, I mean, all the structure that you see in the slide, it means that there is someone that facilitates the consultation that the Commission usually runs in preparing the work programs and so on. So it is the EOSC partnership that feeds the Commission with the way to go. But it's not that this way to go is just something that the Commission takes. We also digest. We also use what I said before, our idea of EOSC being the enabler of our open science policy to, let's say, establish what are the calls for the Horizon Europe funding program. But also we listen to all the parties of the EOSC Association. There is, the EOSC partnership, we take into account what the steering board says. We take also into account main stakeholders that are part of the EOSC environment that provides comments that are enriching what is the directionality that the Commission then implements into its work programs for Horizon Europe. And we take care, of course, at the investments, at the actions at European level that creates the need of making them converging with national and institutional investments. And this is another task that the EOSC partnership has to facilitate, create this kind of coordination. So working with the co-program partnership for the Commission, it is let's say, the number of stakeholders that we consult, but also implies that we have also to observe this kind of collaboration that needs to be effective. And this slide is a bit confusing, but it shows you that we put some reflection on the topics that we publish in our work programs. I mean, this is an example of the example of the work program 21-22, where you can see that there is a strict link to the action areas expressed in the strategic research and innovation agenda of the EOSC partnership, and the topics that we published in the work program 21-22, but also you can see that there are actions that go beyond what we received as contribution from the stakeholders, and they are perfectly in line with the vision of making open science the new norm, such as contributing at the community level, providing support to the missions of Horizon Europe, but also to include a network of a technical support to create a network of institutional publishers at European level. And you see as well the procurement, that is an initiative that wants to concretize the creation of this federation layer that sometimes created a bit of confusion. I mean, where is EOSC? Is it the EOSC portal? It is not. What it will be a federation layer, and this federation layer will, let's say, concretize through the procurement that will be soon published. And here a note that we were expecting this procurement to be out now, but it will be still in the fourth quarter of this year, but it is a bit delayed. If you are interested in knowing something about this procurement, in the slide you have the link to the fact sheet, and also to the all the public information that is available for this procurement. And my presentation should be about the future EOSC funding. And I would have liked to mention one by one with the, let's say, budget available, all the topics that we are preparing for the work program 22-23, but unfortunately, the work program will be adopted the 25th of November. We were expecting it in these days, so let me say that I would have had the pleasure to read it to you, but no, we have to wait another month, and the calls are expected to be published the 28th of November. No, sorry, the work program will be adopted the 25th, will be published the 28th, and we are expecting the calls to be open early December and closing in March. early December 22 and March 23. And more or less the same timing will be for the calls of the work program 24. Because I'm talking about call for proposals, and then it comes also to thinking about new projects, I wanted just to make a note on the fact that those projects are within a co-program partnership. The Commission wants this co-program partnership to be monitored, to provide certain kind of information on its implementation, and there is the EOSC partnership monitoring framework available. In the slide you have a link to it. So if you plan to present a project in the future calls, please have a look at these indicators and try to go with the KPIs of your project towards the same direction. So you will also help the EOSC partnership to, let's say, fulfill its obligation of monitoring to the Commission. So let's then touch upon briefly what I call priorities, and what you didn't hear from me that are topics, but more or less they will be. So what we received as in our consultation is the need of capitalizing on the investments of the science clusters. And in let's say, a unique fashion, so not spread among disciplines, but in an attempt to coalesce the efforts and also to look to provide a bottom-up approach to the long tail of science. So you might think about open calls, where the science clusters, the research infrastructures behind the science clusters will help all other research institutions in, let's say, facing the challenges that science has in open science. Then we received let's say, a call to look beyond the data and to take into account the diversity of research outputs, and the quality of scientific software is one of the, let's say, priorities that we want to bring among the activities that we would like to open in 2023. Then, before I talked about research assessment, there is ongoing, just started or will start soon, a project on finding metrics for open science practices to be used in assessment metrics, and there will be also in 23 attention to ways of how to better planning, tracking, and assessing scientific knowledge. So to provide all the best possibility for EOSC to implement those pieces that then will make the EOSC Federation as a key element in monitoring the science performance. Then there will be, of course, and I suppose there will be in any work program, attention to implement new services at the level of EOSC core. And when we talk about EOSC, we talk about federation. Interoperability has to be, let's say, a key priority, but who takes care of this interoperability? Is there a body? How can we reach consensus through the different actors that are involved in the EOSC? So I think we thought that having a support dedicated to establish a EOSC architecture and an interoperability framework in terms of sort of board or a stable environment where to discuss these kind of aspects is instrumental to ensure interoperability. And then there is the topic of how to deal with sensitive data. And having some environments available in EOSC where to be able to exchange in a safe manner sensitive data is a key service that it will be important to test and then to operationalize. In 24, we want to continue the attention to the communities and notably to the missions. After having served the cancer and the ocean missions, in 24, we want to support also all the communities that are active in adaptation to the climate change mission. We want to ensure a continuation to the EOSC partnership support, but not a blind support. I mean, in this case, we listen to, for example, the steering board and national representatives. And at this stage, we also would like this action to support some bottom-up activities to better consolidate, to help member states to better consolidate their national tables where to discuss EOSC and then to capitalize on best practices exchanging between the member states. And also potentially some joint activities to be kicked off through the some support that this kind of idea of a topic could bring. Then a key element is also to establish and enable a network of federated trustworthy repository. So having a peer relation between repositories, supporting each other and creating some alignments and enhance the collaboration is paramount if we want really to achieve a web of fair data. Data will have to be deposited somewhere, and the trustworthy repositories are those that can ensure certain kind of quality. The harmonization of practices for long-term access are also a sensitive subject because there are investments dedicated to preservation, but there is also the question of what to preserve, what is the level of quality, and what is the concept of quality of data, what that means quality in terms of adherence to, for example, to the FAIR principles, but also the quality in terms of use. I mean, are these important for progressing in science? Are these some niche data that need to be, let's say, preserved just for a small community? Which kind of elements we use to define which data is good to be maintained long-term and which not, because long-term preservation is a costly activity. And then in the work in the year 23, there was the attention to enhanced services for the core of EOSC, and in 24 there will be attention towards innovative and customizable services for the EOSC exchange. And this I wanted to give you an overview of what you will soon read in the work program 23-24. And I know that you already had a look at it because of representatives of member states at the program committee and through the national contact points, so I'm not, let's say, revealing anything that you didn't hear before, and I just gave you an indication of the priorities for the next 2 years. And if you have, with this I conclude, and if you have any question, you can do it now or you can approach me later.
Thank you very much. Christian, please. Okay, are there any questions from the audience? Yes, we have one from Volker. Is there our colleague who has a... Oh, let me just hand this to you.
Just one comment. You didn't mention this, but if the timeline is going as foreseen, then you are going to organize on 6th of December an information day about the Horizon Europe 23-24 work program.
Yes.
So you might mark this in your calendar if you want to know more about this. And I think that it's a whole day event, I think, foreseen. It's going to be online, and that's really a good place then to get all the details.
So thanks, Volker. So I can officialize that the first call will open the 6th of December. I wasn't, let's say, sort of allowed to say the date, also because it was a bit, let's say, discussed. Because a early date, it means also an earlier closure of the call, while some member states, they said, okay, you can open it earlier, but leave the closing date at the end of March, so we will have at least almost 1 month more to prepare the proposals, but the Commission said no. Yeah, there are timings. The implementation of this, of the Horizon Europe is fully delegated to the agencies. They are in a situation where they need to handle a lot of calls, and because of that, the agencies need to enforce a very strict timeline for the calls. But let's say you will have the usual 4 months, and it will be again a challenge, but you are ready for the task.
Are there any other questions on the floor or on remote?
Yes.
Okay, can somebody approach Jos for the microphone? Yeah, he's here in the front. No, yeah, our colleague's coming to you. So we have a question from Jos. Yes.
Thank you, Christian. I wanted to, since you already heard in the presentation of Volker that the start off with the Pillar project, we had to wheel and deal with the other projects that were in the same call. I just wanted to ask, are there any provisions in place, or what do you think would be helpful for projects that are in a single call or are in a concurrent call or in a concurrent objective in the new work program? Because I sense that, of course, you have guarded now the view of the Commission with the KPI monitoring and stuff, but it would also be beneficial, to my opinion, if you can improve the efficiency of the calls, that they are working more coordinated and not in too many diverse directions, unless, of course, you want a competition. But it would be helpful to have a better efficiency, especially if you try to develop services and trying to develop new directions into EOSC.
Point taken. Let's say that on one side, competition is good because then stimulates more improvements and let's say the best will win. So this is what has always driven the Commission calls. But when you are in a co-program partnership, and in a partnership, I tell you, looking at other partnerships, there is a high-level coordination. But because those are partnerships that have been established several years ago, and there is, no matter which kind of call you publish, even if you have two divergent topics, they will find coordination for them. EOSC, unfortunately, is a novel one, so still there is a way to go to have the right coordination among the EOSC stakeholders. But I take the point of, let's say, not to create too much friction of competition with the topics. But if you see, when you will see that our work program mostly focuses on topics with 1 or 2 proposals expected. So it is required coordination for participating in such calls. For example, the network of repositories. We do not expect more than 1 because we want high efficient coordination, engaging the highest number of repositories and capitalizing on projects that are like Ferris-Pair was in Horizon 2020. And for example, it was also a point of contact with the regional projects. And therefore, this kind of coordination that was established before has to become a way of organizing the action for this trustworthy network of repositories, engaging also with national repositories and so on. So, but yes. We will try not to create too much divergence, but also we recommend to go on stimulating the coordination within the EOSC partnership.
Thank you. Are there, maybe we only have time for another, if there's any? Okay.
First row?
Yes, in the first row.
Yeah.
Anna?
I have the microphone.
Okay.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for your talk. So, I know that the work program is the outcome of a long process, and therefore it's an outcome of this process. So it's hard to modify quickly in front of events. And right now we are going through a major energetic crisis at European level. So and this clearly will have an impact on EOS construction because of the cost induced by the increase of the energy cost. So, do you foresee a possibility to adapt or to react to this peculiar situation through a call or addressing these energy issues in the building of this digital transition?
Excellent point. We were discussing about how to take into account the green efficiency of digital infrastructures. The fact that we do not fund those infrastructures directly. The EOSC part is different from the research infrastructures, so we don't provide funding for machinery, but what we can take into account is that in the, let's say, all the activities that will fund, there should be an eye for creating even some services for evaluating the energy impact, optimizing the use of resources, within the current infrastructures that are available in Europe. I mean, further investments in novel infrastructures, novel digital infrastructures that can enrich in the future EOSC, it requires a dedicated, let's say, thinking. So I really appreciate this comment, and I will bring back your comment at the Commission level. I suppose that we can stimulate such. But on your side, you can also bring this to the attention of the EOSC partnership. And because here, we are not talking about just European calls that can also provide an additional service that will help digital infrastructure for research to monitor and maybe optimize, having some recipes to optimize the energy consumption. But it engages also with investments at the national level, and I think that those are matter of discussions for the member states, and therefore the EOSC steering board could be a way of reaching this kind of topic into also the investments that member states want to do on their own part, and it could be also stimulated by the EOSC Association, because it represents several stakeholders. Those are providers, and the providers can always optimize the energy consumption and take up some solutions. For example, now we often talk about edge computing that preserves an enormous, let's say, saves a lot of data traffic and reduces the congestion of data transfer, and allows to exploit more data-intensive situations. But we don't know, for example, if it's also energy saving or not. I mean, some analysis need to be also taken into account, and I think it's the community that has to stimulate itself in doing so.
Okay, I think that's all the questions we have for you. Thank you very much, Christian, for your time.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to the next speaker. Suzanne de Michel is a researcher engineer at CNRS. She is part of the Humanum unit, which is an infrastructure for digital humanities. She's leading the European project Triple, which aims to develop a platform for data discovery, research projects and researchers in social science and humanities. And she is the co-coordinator of the European Social Science and Humanities Scholarly Communication Infrastructure, OPERAS, in charge of strategic partnerships. She is also a director of the EOSC Association until 2024. So welcome, Suzanne. Thanks.
So I know you updated your presentation.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be there and to talk about the EOSC Association, and especially the role of the National Open Science Initiative for the EOSC at large. So what I would like to do in the next couple of minutes is mainly to highlight how we try to work at the different with how the kind of different approach that we have in order to better work with at the national level and to align this open science initiative. So first, maybe I will be a bit quick with the first slide in order to save a bit of time, but this is something that has been already highlighted by Volker in particular, about the fact that the EOSC is related to the building of the web of fair data and related services, and the different kind of things that we want to do to achieve the EOSC. So I don't want to develop that more. let's focus on the EOSC Association, which is a specific instrument in the building of the EOSC, because the EOSC Association actually is a key player today to structure the whole EOSC ecosystem and to engage and represent the scientific community. So this is here a picture of the last GA taken, the first face-to-face GA taken in Brussels last May, to show the members of the EOSC Association today. What you have to keep in mind here is that behind all of these persons, there are a lot of different institutions. So actually, on this picture, there are not only hundreds of people, but thousands which are here and which federate the whole community engaged into the association. So the purpose of the association now, so we have 3 goals. This is why the association has been built. First, as I already said, to provide a single voice for the advocacy and the representation of the EOSC stakeholder community. This is probably one of the main goals. The second one is to promote the alignment of European Union research policy and priorities with activities coordinated by the association, and I will come back to that later. And the last one, enable seamless access to data through interoperable services, the kind of objective that is also completely relevant for the EOSC at large and not only the association. So how we work and the kind of governance that we have. So this is also something that has been highlighted before, but I would like to remind you with this slide that the EOSC Association is one actor among 3, which are all together, which form altogether the partnership. So you have the steering board on one side on the left, made by the European Commission, representative of the European Commission, and representative of the member states and associated country. And on the other side, so this is more the political and strategic level, and on the other side you have the EOSC Association, where our role is really to represent and to federate all the community. And this is a kind of tripartite collaboration where we are all engaged into the building of the EOSC. What is interesting here in this slide also is that in the steering board, with the involvement of the member state and associated country, this is the first step where you can see the role of the national open science policy or the national involvement into the EOSC through the role of the member states and the associated countries. So this is something really important, and this is why this is part of this partnership. So within the association, we have now almost 200 members. And when I say members, it's I mixed the members with a big M, big capital, and the observers. You can see on the map the kind of representation of the members that we have in Europe. And something else that we can highlight is the fact that we have 27 mandated organizations. So what are the mandated organizations? These are specific members that have been appointed by their own ministry to represent also the ministry within the association. So you can already see that within the EOSC Association, we have this relation directly with the member states and the associated country in the partnership, and also the role of the mandated organization that I will detail a bit later, and which is also important for the activities of the association. So the board of directors, it is composed of 9 independent individuals. So the association is led by 8 directors and 1 president. We are elected by the General Assembly members amongst the delegates of the association for 3 years mandate. And the role of this board is also to support or to represent the diversity of the scientific community in terms of country, scientific domain, types of organization, types of stakeholders. And for the moment, I think we are quite aligned with this objective. So how we manage this very big community. So you can imagine first that it is not an easy thing to be able to manage all these very different members within the association. So the first thing that we did by establishing the association is to set up a couple of advisory groups. So you have the name of these 5 advisory groups in bold. And within each of these advisory groups, there are different task forces to work on the different activities and priorities that have been designed by the whole community. So in terms of national involvement, engagement, so what we do with the association in the context of this EOSC partnership is to organize, so each country organize tripartite event. So it's named tripartite event because in this kind of event, you should have at least one representative of the EC, one of the country, the political side of the country who is the host, and one member of the board, or either the Secretary General, who is there to represent the association. So you have here only some small information about the different events that are currently, that were organized or that are planned in the months. And we have a lot since a couple of months now that have been organized. So there is also this tool that normally most of you should have been invited to join, which is the EOSC Forum, provided by the EOSC Association. The work of this tool is really to facilitate the relation with the community, to engage more with them by providing chatting tools and also the facilities to find the right documentation. And in this EOSC Forum, a dedicated channel has been created, which is and open to everyone, which is to share information on the different tripartite events. So you can see that after each of the events, there is a blog post written and published so that everyone can have a look at what is happening in the country in order to know the specific issue or highlights or needs based on this country. So I just put two examples here, one in Greece, one in the Nordic and Baltic countries, and you have a last one with Spain and Portugal. So this is also a way to engage directly at the national, to engage in order to by highlighting the national initiative related to the EOSC. Another thing that we try to do within the EOSC Association is a kind of survey that some of you probably might have seen, which is not an easy thing to complete. It's a yearly survey in order to gather the kind of additional activities that are made by the institutions that are members of the EOSC Association. So actually we are the EOSC Association, by signing the Memorandum of Understanding between the EC, the member states and the EOSC Association, has the obligation to make a monitoring on the different activities from its members related to the EOSC. And this is a way to highlight how the EOSC Association actually contribute to the building of the EOSC by the different activities of its members. So here, you might ask yourself, what is the relation with the national initiative? But actually, it's a very powerful tool also for the member states, because thanks to this kind of survey, they can gather all the additional activities that are funded and made by their national organization in order to see what are the highlights, what are the needs, what are the missing points, in order to see how to fund or to support the organization based on what they are doing. So this is also part of the strategy to better align the national initiative. Let's come back now and let's address now the question of the mandated organization. So I already tell you how they are, what is their specific role. So we presented at the last General Assembly a charter to explain how the mandated organizations are supposed to work with the EOSC Association. So this is a common work that have been done between this group and the board of the EOSC Association. We have regular meetings where we address the issue, where we share information from them at the national level and from the EOSC Association in order to continue to engage and to facilitate the alignment. And for instance, we had one meeting this morning. And we also engage the mandated organization in the different EOSC activities, such as the task force, the working groups, but also this kind of survey that I just mentioned, and so on. So each time, thanks to this organization and the role of the mandated organization, we are able to precise more and more the kind of needs and to create a common understanding of what are the next steps for the EOSC Association and the EOSC at large. And all this information, so the AAP, the task forces, the mandated organization, and so on, all these tools, I would say, contribute to the setting up of the strategic research and innovation agenda, which defines the general framework for future research, development, and innovation activities in relation to EOSC, and also to feed the multi-annual roadmap, which sets the priority activities for at 3 implementation level, and we already saw that in the previous presentation. So maybe I can just highlight on this slide the fact that in 2023 and 2024, we will enter into a new phase of the multi-annual roadmap, which will be the expansion to production that generate the added value. So try to produce more and more to create more added value for the EOSC. And these are the agreed priorities built from the work with the task force and the mandated organization for the 2 next years. And I would like to highlight mainly the involvement section with the member states' engagement. So what has been highlighted in this work is really the need to have better support, better, I wouldn't say relation because we already have this one, but much more better alignment between the member states and the EOSC association. So this is the kind of things on which we are all working. And as the topic of my presentation was not only the EOSC association, but also the EOSC at large, I just would like to open in a 3 last slide a couple of things. So first, there is this EOSC association, which is one of the key players, but there are other initiatives that support the national activities into the EOSC. You already know them, of course, EOSC-Pillar, but also the others that are part of the Infra-EOSC U5 collaboration. So it was just a kind of reminder not to forget that there is not only the association, but also other very powerful tools. And I wanted to highlight the position paper from this collaboration, which was, at least to me, a very interesting position paper to highlight the role of this regional project. And lastly, I think, if it's my last example, there is also the CONOSC, so the Council for National Open Science Coordination. So this council is a network of national open science coordinators in the European region. So here again, you have this relation. So the CONOSC is much more on the political side, which is not the case of the EOSC association, which is much more on the strategic and implementation. But the president of the EOSC association, Karel Lubben, is also a part of this CONOSC initiative. So it's also a way to contribute to this common sharing of knowledge. Actually, the most complicated, at least in my own experience, to be able to align and better work at the national level is really to be able to share the right information because we are not too many, but a lot. And you have, I just put the link to the open science policies that are in the different countries involved into the EOSC. So yeah, I try at least to show you the multiple approach for a successful EOSC. So in the scientific context, we have the project. We have also the tripartite events. In the political context, we have the CONOSC, the mandated organization, and I forgot to write it, the framework of the partnership. And in the sustainability viewpoint, the additional activity plan, the SRIA, and the MAR. So these are the different tools used to facilitate the national, the role of the national organization for a successful EOSC. And I would like to finish with this quick information about the conference that will happen on Thursday and Friday. So I know Thursday you will have to, you will still be on the EOSC-Pillar final conference, but there is this online event about open science and innovation in Ukraine. So another national initiative to discuss the engagement with the EOSC. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Rob informs me that we have time for one question. If either from the room or from remote.
I don't see
No,
No?
I think it's okay.
Okay. Very clear. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Okay, so our next speaker has actually done his speech some time back already. So we will just hear from him now a video recording from Federico Ruggieri, who is the EOSC-Pillar coordinator. Just to introduce him really quickly, he is the current director of GAR, the Italian Research and Education Network, and he's a member of the board of directors of GÉANT, the European Research and Education Network, and the coordinator of the EOSC-Pillar project. So I think now we can start to play the message.
Good afternoon, everybody. I am very happy to welcome to the EOSC-Pillar event, which is concluding the activity of EOSC-Pillar. So the final event that will show all the results of this project. I'm very sad that I'm not being able to be with you in Paris, a wonderful city which I love very much, for this event due to the fact that we have here in Rome the board of directors of GAR, and so I will be not with you in this event. I want, however, to say that we should be proud of the results of this project, and I very much thank all the partners which have been contributing to these results in the past 3 years. We have reached several achievements, like technical ones, like federated data, the use of many use cases, and the training platform, but also political and policy achievements in which I think we should also invest in the future, like the national initiatives that have been collected in the project. They've been federated in a common effort to bring the results of national activities in the European landscape. And so we did very much together in this respect, like surveys and legal and policy analysis. So the guidelines and recommendations which have been developed in the project are very relevant, and I think this will be useful for the other projects that will come after this one. All in all, I think we should also be proud of the fact that we have built a federation of initiatives in the countries which have been contributing to the project, and developed the transnational access as one of the most important results. The idea of building this project came to us just because we were convinced that the work that was going on in the countries had to be put in a common effort to federate all the activities in a European landscape. So I think this regional approach has been successful, and I think also in the near future we should invest into similar national initiatives. The end of EOSC-Pillar project is not the end of activity, of course. We have a legacy which will be useful for other projects. Just as an example, because we are involved as GARA in one of those as coordinator, Skills for EOSC is the next activity we are dealing with. And although this is a project which is concentrated on training and similar activities, however, the approach of federated national activities is the same. So we are very proud that the activity and the ideas which have been developed in EOSC-Pillar will be used also in the next set of projects that will put forward new ideas and new initiatives to realize what we think is the EOSC infrastructure that we need to set up at European level. Setting up a European infrastructure is of course based, at least for us, on activities which have to be linked to national activities and related to similar national initiatives. I think this is the most important lesson that we have learned in our project, and I also want to thank all the partners and those which have contributed so much to the final results and success of EOSC-Pillar project. Thank you so much, and I wish you a very successful event in Paris, and see you in the next possible opportunity to work together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So a round of applause. I'll have to ask my GAR colleagues to please transmit these rounds of applause once they meet. Okay, so that takes us now to the end of this first opening session, but we have a next